Greetings. Do feel he is creeping up on me. Yeah, Mr. Scary Mummy and things. This video comes from my day job, where I teach all this music tech stuff in a further education college in the north of England. Basically, it's how to set up your folder structure and things, but specifically we're looking at downloading and importing a MIDI file or a couple of MIDI files to have a play with, how to set up your audio interface, and generally getting used to working with MIDI and understanding how the click works and things and working to the grid. So let's get the rock on. Good day, you lovely people. On this fine day, we're going to be looking at an audio MIDI sequencer. The one we're looking at is Cubase. We're specifically going to be looking at the MIDI stuff. Got to do a little bit of housekeeping before we start anything. It's really important that you have your folder structure set up. So what I'm going to do first is click on my folder, go into music. I'm going to create two folders. The first one called Cubase Projects. I'll tell you what, we'll spell Cubase right as well. And then another one called MIDI Files. There is another folder on the system that we can get to that is Cubase Projects, but it's a real chew on to get to. If we create a folder specifically for all your projects, you know exactly where it is, you've created it, you know where you're going to be saving to, and you don't lose any of your lovely work. The MIDI files folder, it'll become apparent now, because what we're going to do is we're going to download some MIDI files. First we need to open Google, and then we look for free MIDI files. Now what a MIDI file is it's just data, it's just information. They're all absolutely tiny little files, and what the data does is the data is MIDI information, and the MIDI information allows us to play a sound on a computer or a keyboard or an external device, but all that we have with the MIDI is just the information that we've put in, which is like the note length, the velocity, how hard it's hit, and the note pitch. We can do loads of other little bits with it as well, but first off, let's get some of these files downloaded. Off to A, because we want to look for ABBA, and the first one that we'll download is Dancing Queen. So I'm going to save link as, it'll take us to our folder. See, it's gone to music MIDI files already. And just if you're not sure where that is, go on to my PC, there's a music folder, there's the MIDI files, there's Dancing Queen. So let's have a look for something else, something that is a band style thing. Pop-ups are lovely. Rage Against the Machine, Bulls on Parade. Right click, save link as. It'll go straight back to your MIDI file folder, because that was the last bit. Right, we've got everything that we need there. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to open Cubase. This is the Cubase icon. So we'll get Cubase opened up, and the first thing that we need to do is to wait for it to load in, and then it's going to ask us to prompt for a project location at the bottom. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go create empty, and it's going to take us and ask us where we want to store it. So you've guessed it, go to Cubase Projects and let's create a folder in here called Bulls on Parade, and that's where we're going to pull our MIDI file into. There's a big chunk of bump comes up at the side. We can get rid of that clicking that window there. There's another one at the bottom that may open up and close down depending on what you're doing. These are, and that side there we can close and open up. So you can leave them all off for the time being. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that we've got sound coming through our headphones. Where we do that, press play, and then what I'm going to do over here is a metronome, and we can hear a beep. That beep is keeping us in time with what we have at the top. These are all the bars, and then within the bars there's the 1, 2, 3, 4 beats. We can change the tempo down here by moving the mouse over the top. I've just clicked on it with that left click, press play, press the audio on. I've used a shortcut there, and the shortcut was C. So I'm just going to whiz that down. It's going mental now. So its default setting is 120. Put my teeth in. Its default setting's 120. So, right, what happens if you don't get any sound? We've got to pop up the top up here, up to Studio Setup, click onto one of these windows here, specifically the VST audio system, and if you plug in your headphones into the side, you want the generic low latency driver. If you're plugging into the little red box below the computer, you need to click on Focusrite. I'll leave it on the generic low latency driver to make sure that's working. So everything's good, everything's playing back. Now, if we don't get a sound out, what we've got to do is we've got to make sure that the software, Cubase, is talking to the hardware, the computer. And the way that we do this is we have a load of ports. You have some input ports and output ports. Dead easy, we just click on here, click onto input. I'm just going to get rid of this because we don't need it for what I'm doing, and it's the output ports. Got to make sure they're enabled and that they're saying display 1, display 2. That's for making sure we can hear the sound coming out of Cubase and being played back through the computer, and this is so it can be played on the Get Big board at the front of the classroom. So we have our sound, we have a MIDI file. What we're going to do now is we're going to go File, Import, MIDI file. Do you want to create a new project? No. So go on to Bulls on Parade. Let's have a look in our music file. There's Rage Against the Machine. This will open up, and what we'll have now is we can see we've got loads of little, these are what we call parts. Each of this bit here is what we call a part, and these are tracks. So if I let this play, turn the click off down the bottom, sounds tremendous. Obviously it's not going to, the electronic sounds aren't going to work tremendously well with electric guitar, but you may be thinking, well, where is this going to be use of me being electric guitar boy or drummer boy? Well, we can just mute the drums. I'd have to find the drum channel first. There's that could be a bass. So what we can do, we can rename it just by double clicking on there, bass guitar. Right, we know that our Bulls on Parade's not working tremendously well. Before we do anything else, File, Save As, Bulls on Parade 01. Next time we work on it, it'll be 02. Next time we work on it, it'll be 03. So I'm just going to close that down. I'm going to open a new project now. New project. So prompt for project location. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go back to Cubase projects, create a new folder called Dancing Queen. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm going to show you another way of getting your MIDI file in. Quick check that we've got audio. Tracks playing, nothing there. Make sure that you've got the click on. Clicks on, everything else is hunky-dory. I'm just going to pop to our folder down the bottom, go on to music, MIDI files, and now we're going to have the delight that is Dancing Queen. You see what happened there where I dropped the song in and the song itself, a Control A, we can get it to start anywhere along the timeline, but you see how it's snapping to a bar? That's because we have this here set to the grid and set to a bar. Go back to the beginning, clicks off, we should hear the delights that is Dancing Queen. There's our drums. So I'll just quickly label that drums. Now, one of the other really cool things is with Cubase, we're just going to go File, Save As, Dancing Queen 01. If we get a power cut, everything turns off. It'll open up exactly where we were there. Now what we're going to have a little look at is what the big deal with this MIDI sequencing thing is. We click onto this track here, the drum, this part, click on the drums, and we're going to open up that in the drum editor. Can you see how this here is a closed hi-hat, and it's right on the beat. There's on beat 4. I'll zoom in and out using G and H. Our bass drum will be right down the bottom, so there's our acoustic bass drum. Sometimes it's on there or it's on the other bass drum. We can see the kick drums on 1, beat 1, beat 3, beat 1, beat 3. The track's playing along. It's all locked to that grid. Now, one of the cool things that we can do is if we take the tempo of the track up and down, I've just used to get this what we call the transport bar. You can grab hold of this and move it around, so you just get hold of a little bit of the black at the side there and move it around. I can change the tempo of the track. You see nothing's moving, but the tempo's changed. Let's have it drum and bass styly. So for this first session, that's all we should be doing. That's all we need to do. We've little recap through it. I'll shrink this down. We've got our music folder. We've created a Cubase projects folder, MIDI files folder, downloaded 2 MIDI files. We've then opened Cubase up using the Cubase 10 logo thing. When it opens up, it's blank. We've then file, imported a MIDI file, or we've dragged and dropped the MIDI file in. These are all called parts. These are all called tracks. When you see this bit here, that's a MIDI track. I don't think I mentioned that. There endeth the sermon for today. Have a lovely rest of your day and have loads of fun with Cubase.